Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to We the People. Tonight, We the People meet Tamborine Borrelli. She is running in Washington's 10th Congressional District, and that's an interesting one. It's weird. We think it was put there for a particular reason. It maybe even for the guy who's in there now. His name is Denny Heck. He is masquerading around as a Democrat, but I think the big D behind his name really stands for Denny because he takes an awful lot of corporate money, and we're going to talk about that and why Tamborine wants to replace him. She was with us last night on No More Fools, and we heard a little bit from her about what she plans to do, and we're going to get in depth now, because that's what We the People is all about. Tamborine Borrelli, thank you for joining us on We the People.
Thank you, John. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it was so long ago. Appreciate you being on again. Thank you for taking your time out last night to do the big event. I really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you
for
including.
Awesome. It's great. It's great. We'll do more of those. Before we get talking about some specifics on the issues with you, I'd like to bring on the lovely Laura Live and Good, because she's going to take your questions live. That's what this is, an engagement broadcast. Laura, tell them how to engage with Tamborine Borrelli tonight.
Okay. Well, if you are watching live, good for you. And you have the unique opportunity to ask questions of our candidate during the show. So as always, I will put her website into chat. You can kind of check out her platform. But if any burning questions come up during the show, please write the word question all in caps or tag me so that I can see. And I will ask at the appropriate moments during the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura.
You're welcome.
Tamborine. So,
John.
Yes. Last night was fun, but we really only got you started, and I had to cut you off in the middle of you were.
I felt so bad. I totally started in on a tangent, and I was like, oh. Sometimes it's like I blank out, and then I wake up. I'm like, I've been talking for about.
That's okay. That'll be good for filibusters later on. All
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's excellent. If you have the gifted gab, it really helps running in the race. I mean, you know that. Right. So we're going to talk about the issues. We're going to talk about all the fun stuff. But I just want to ask the same question we ask everybody. Why did you choose to run? Why did you choose to run for this office? What compelled you to do this now?
So overall, I don't have to tell you that we have a crisis in this country. And, I was someone that never voted before. And I didn't vote because I didn't trust the electoral system. I didn't trust the people who were running. And the long and short of it is our election system is broken. Obviously, we all know that. We know that our Congress is compromised by way of legal bribery from the pouring in of money from lobbyists. So I felt that instead of being apathetic and not voting anymore, that I had no right to complain about it. I had no right to sit out unless I was willing to stand up and be the type of candidate that I would want to vote for. So in a nutshell, that's why I'm running.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you didn't see anybody that was doing what you expected, and so you said, I got to be that person, which is really hard to do. I mean, you're not running as a Democrat, which is also making it more difficult. Let's talk about the I in your name. We learned a lot about the Independent Party in Oregon and California. There's a weird one out there. That is not the same in Washington. You're running as an independent. Talk about that.
Yes. So I'm running as an independent because I believe that, well, say for instance, in our district, 50% of the registered voters do not vote. I believe they are, like I was, apathetic. And based on the 2016 fiasco, there's people that were a part of the Democratic Party that no longer are and have lost faith in it. So I thought that it was best for me to run as an independent to appeal to those who would not have voted and will not vote otherwise. I wanted to run as an independent because personally, 2016, just besides breaking my heart, I couldn't, on principle, I could not run as a Democrat. I just could not I could not make myself do that. It just, I would have just not been right within my own soul.
It's understandable. I mean, and from what we've heard from other people who are running as Democrats, right? We talked to Sarah Smith, Dorothy Gasquet, and you're familiar with them. They're progressives like you.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
They're facing challenges because the Democratic Party is not interested in having them primary their incumbents. And I'm guessing Denny Heck, he does have the D by his name, and they're going to defend him because he is sucking up corporate interest and doing what the establishment wants, right?
Exactly. And just a caveat here, in 2016, I did run for state Senate. And this is partly the reason why I decided not to run as a Democrat, because 10 minutes before the filing deadline, the establishment Democrats pulled out of retirement a 20-year veteran of the state House and Senate because they didn't want a Berniecrat to take that seat. Now, that's not hearsay. That's verifiable actual fact. Now, mind you, the incumbent was a Tea Party Republican. Now, this is an example of a microcosm representing the macrocosm where the Dems cut their nose off to spite their face. They would rather have a Republican, a Tea Party, no less, stay in the seat rather than have a true progressive take that seat, just like what happened in the presidential race. So
absolutely. And
I thought, first time shame on you, second time shame on me.
It's good. It's a good point. And we've seen that tactic. We see that everywhere. It's happened in Oregon. It's happened in Washington. It's happened in California. They pull somebody out of retirement, or they'll pull somebody over, hand them a wad of cash, and go. It's very unfortunate that the Democratic Party doesn't really seem to be standing for democracy the way we understood it, or I understood it as a card-carrying Democrat, right? So
Sure.
Even more difficult to run as an independent in Washington. Although, and I don't have the stat with me, but my guess is the independent voter rolls in Washington have increased between 2016 and now.
Yes, and overall, actually, as I'm sure independents have risen exponentially.
Yes.
Just the past couple of years. So it's no longer, the scarlet letter of, oh, you're not running as a Dem or a Republican. There is an insurgence of passion within everyday people that are sick and they're tired of the same old party politics. They want and need something new. And if that comes in and by way of independence, then so be it. Which I just want to mention here just for a second. We were talking about this before we came on, but Tim Canova just announced moments ago that he is now running as an independent. So I feel honored that I am in good company.
Yeah, and I want to. Hey Tim, if you're watching, which I know you're busy and stuff, but I'd almost like to just have you back on for a short thing to tell us what's going on and what kind of support you have out there in Florida for independence. Because I think it's you said something that struck me. It's so true. Growing up, throughout 80s, 90s, where we are today, the independent party was that cast off. Nobody ran independent. Who's them? And it's shifted, right? Independent party seems to have more of a stature. And then you have other parties like DSA and Green that are kind of rising up in the ranks. So it has shifted. It's very different because people don't trust either party. I want to go back to before you decided to run and talk about this. This is from your website. You got a great website and you got lots of content on there. We were the thank you content team for making how many slides, Laura Livengood? 80 what?
89 slides.
That's
I was impressed.
Guinness World Record for Uphill Media We the People slides. 89.
That's awesome.
And we're going to file that right now. But I just want to read a little bit from the site, your site. I am a descendant of Italian immigrants, daughter of a veteran and entrepreneur who became involved in politics when inspired by the movement generated from Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. So talk about what you did for Bernie Sanders and during his campaign.
Sure. So basically, like everybody else, I was inspired because I heard within Bernie's voice something different. He spoke unlike the other fork-tongued politicians. I could feel he really cared. And so I threw myself all the way in opened up a volunteer campaign office here in Yelm, Washington, and became a campaign deputy field organizer, worked for the caucus, just was, anything and everything I could do to be a part of it, I wanted to do. I eventually became a national delegate, went to Philly, worst
Nice.
week of my life.
You know what? I just want to tell you, there was a picture. I bet you we have live footage of you speaking at Democracy Spring, because we were there with the solo, and I saw a picture of you with Democracy Spring, and you're up in front of the microphone, and we've got the whole thing, and I didn't have a chance to go back and look for it. I'm going to try to find it, but I bet we have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you were there in April.
Yeah, well, I wasn't there personally. That was when we first had the Live You Solo. That was our first trip. I hadn't even seen it. I shipped it in a box to the people running Democracy Spring. I can't remember his name now, but we had Mickey San Miguel,
Kai?
who was our volunteer. Kai. And there was another guy who was doing more of the tech. We shipped it to them, and they were our crew. And we did the whole thing. It was awesome. You were there, and then you went to Philly as well, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. We were there too.
April, we did the walk, the march. I actually flew into Baltimore and walked with them the last 13 miles.
Nice. Nice.
Into DC, and then Philly, obviously, in July.
Yeah, and I had it easy. I didn't have to do any of the marching. And then when we went to the convention in July, I got to stay in the Airbnb while everybody else went out on the streets. So that's executive producer there.
Sounds like you have a very cushy gig there, John.
Oh yeah, I'm making fat stacks. I'm gonna get on my Learjet when we're done with this.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, exactly. Money for the revolution. Let's talk about money and money in politics, because you said that was pretty much your key issue, and I want to bring up this slide. And it says, I currently serve on the Board of Election Justice USA, which focuses on developing an open source solution to our broken election system. But the big portion of election problems right now in politics has to do with money, the corruption of the money, right?
Yeah, because, if we take care of that problem, that's the umbrella. We can get all of the legislation passed that we need to if we have people in office who will A, sponsor the bills,
right,
and B, vote for the bills, right? So if we have Congress that is getting paid exorbitant amounts of money to represent the interests of the source of that money, then what that tells us is they are not going to listen to the people. They not only are not going to listen to us, they will not represent the issues that we're literally begging for in town hall. So that's first and foremost. We have got to get money out of politics. And unlike the popular belief is that this began with Citizens United. It predates Citizens United by decades. Princeton did a survey, and it actually was a really in-depth statistical analysis in regard to, they had on one hand the popular policy of the day juxtaposed to the legislation that actually passed. And what they found was that people have, and this is a quote, near zero effect on public policy. Now that is chilling, because it really is saying that money rules supreme. And who is funneling the money in but the corporations? And if we have a corporate controlled government, it is the actual definition of fascism. So, none of us want that. So this is the problem we must take care of. And how we do that is to elect people who are uncorruptible, people who don't and aren't interested in taking the money.
And you said, I appreciate your answer there. You said uncorruptible. I'm going to spin off of that, because you've signed a number of contracts that are designed to help enforce that uncorruptible aspect, right? You want to talk about CFAR and some of the other contracts that you've signed in that regard?
Yes, indeed. And I believe that one of the ways to remedy this problem of money in politics is this should be the standard. This should not be something that is, one or two people do it. I believe that if someone is taking a seat and their job description specifically is to represent the people, I mean, to have a contract to say, look, this is what I'm running on. This is what I believe. This is what the people want. And if I don't either sponsor legislation or support legislation to these degrees of these policies that I'm running on, that you're voting for me on, in my first 180 days, if I don't do that, on the 181st day, I will resign.
Is that in the CFAR? Is that your personal contract? What is that?
That is the CFAR. That is the CFAR, the Contract for American Renewal. And truly, that would be the seed of renewal. If we had elected congressmen and congresswomen that signed a contract, I mean, I'm amazed that this has not been a standard.
Well, so hang on, I want to talk about that. First of all, I don't remember them telling me that about the 180-day thing. That's really cool, because we were talking with Brian and Kelly with CFAR at the beginning of the show. So I was not aware of that. I thought it was an attempt at a legal binding thing, but it's not that. And the other thing that I thought was fascinating is that, and I should remember this. You and I should both remember this, because we were probably in our 20s at the time. But in the 90s, Newt Gingrich had some kind of a similar contract with Republicans, and it was very popular because everybody he got to sign on to this. I don't even remember that. I got to go look it up. The thing is, I just want to tell you this: you're not in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party platform is supposed to be that contract. And we just went through this in Oregon, where we, the people, decide, here's what we want you to do, here's how we want you to do it, get to work. And the Democratic Party goes, right?
Exactly. The platform is nothing but a nice idea that never gets weight thrown behind it. And that's a shame. And that is one of the root reasons why people have lost faith in the party.
Absolutely. Now, I do have hope for a lot of the progressives that are running, that when they take power, they will use that power to enforce the platform. But we're early in that game. And so, it's these contracts with progressive candidates help us know who to trust. And I appreciate that you've signed, I don't know how many you've signed, a number of them you've signed, CFAR and Pro-Truth Pledge, and Off Fossil Fuels I saw was on there, right? A number of those.
And candidates with a contract that is specifically in regard to repealing Citizens United.
Awesome. That's awesome. Let's talk a little about. We're gonna brag on you a little bit. You got some serious endorsements. These are endorsements. This is important. So, and where I want to go with this is healthcare. I'm looking at a lot of these here, but the one that I've heard a lot about is the red berets for Medicare.
Mm-hmm,
Talk about that. And
May 6th.
Yeah, tell me what's going on there.
Calendar, May 6th.
What's up with May 6th?
That's National Nurses Day.
Oh, is it?
We're going to have a march on National Nurses Day and for Medicare for All. And specifically here in Washington, we have an initiative, I-1600, and it will be our state single payer. And if we can get 300,000 signatures, we here in Washington, as well as other issues, we have been the leaders on. So we're really excited and passionate about getting this on the ballot. So we can be the first to, if they're dragging their feet federally, we're going to go ahead and make that a reality here on our state.
So if I understood you correctly, if you get enough signatures, this becomes a ballot measure. Is that what you're saying? Absolutely,
yes. If we get 300,000 signatures, it will be on the ballot.
That's amazing. And I saw that our Revolution National has just endorsed, is it the I-1600 group?
They have endorsed the initiative.
That's phenomenal. That's great. That just lends a lot of power behind it. So we appreciate them doing that. We have to stick together as progressives. There's a lot of other ones on here. Our Revolution King County, Our Revolution Thurston, Washington Berniecrats Coalition.
Washington Berniecrats Coalition, yes.
Right. All right. Laura Livengood, I think I've seen several long-winded questions coming from some people. Certainly Oz.
Yes, Oz has got a good question, though. I like that. We'll see what she says.
What do we got here?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Corporate candidates have been parroting a script that says the evolution of universal health care in the EU was built on incrementalism, like the Affordable Care Act approach. And we know that that's not true, but how do you respond to that position that we keep hearing?
Listen, I am not a fan of incrementalism. I don't believe that we are at a place in our country where we can even entertain the conversation. I believe we are way past due to have a single payer. There are plenty of other countries, as many of you listeners know, because you're plugged in and you're you're definitely educated in regard to why it's time that we don't waste time with a supposed Affordable Care Act. Someone just asked me that question today. And here's the thing is, people that have insurance under the Affordable Care Act, their deductible is so high, they might as well not even have insurance.
Right.
Myself personally, I don't have insurance. I can't afford insurance. So
me either.
we must get this single payer passed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same thing. It's like if I'm going to get that kind of insurance, it's really only covering if I chop off an arm or something. It's not. And then I'm still going to be in debt. Right. So it's just kind of ridiculous to even go.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's not a question of it's not a debate about healthcare. It's a debate about economics. It's a debate in regard to the pharmaceutical industry, the medical equipment companies, the insurance companies. That's what the problem is.
Absolutely.
And so, let's not mince words. Let's tell it like it is. That's the only reason why we don't have single payer. It's a moneymaker. Billions of dollars are getting paid into the coffers and into the pockets of these CEOs. And it's time, listen, those fat cats better take note that it's time. That era is over with. The people are not going to take that any longer.
I agree. Before we hit the next question from Laura Livengood, I want to ask you a spinoff. What do you think of the idea of regulation that caps CEO pay at some percentage times above what their lowest worker is? Listen,
back in the 70s, the ratio between workers and CEOs was an acceptable amount. CEO salaries have gone up 973% since then, and it's nauseating. Yes. Back in the 70s, when I was growing up, you could have a nice living, a middle class. We had unions, middle class. We had, 2 cars, a nice home, 2-week vacation, and then some. You might as well forget it now. No one, a high percentage of the population doesn't even have $1,000 in their savings account if they have an emergency. So that's telling you whatever we've got going now is not working. So absolutely, there should be a cap on CEO salaries.
Thank you. Pretty much covered that one. Laura Livengood, next question.
Yeah, Jeffrey asks, he says, corporate Democrats speak about their kind of collective positions on gun laws. Can progressive candidates collectively establish their own position on gun laws? And that was something that you don't mention in your issues page. So, Jeffrey, wanted to know what you think about
progressive gun laws.
I imagine anything is possible if progressive candidates got together and if they all agreed. I believe that is one of those hot, as they call it, button topics.
Yeah.
Gun reform and Second Amendment. I am a supporter of the Second Amendment, even though I don't personally own a gun. I wish that we lived in a state of peace where none of us felt the need for it. However, this is a constitutional subject here, and I am a firm believer and fierce supporter of the Constitution. I think it's very dangerous once we start peeling away. And here's the problem. This is what this has been happening in regard to situations that we're filled with fear, and based on that fear of whatever the subject is, and not just about guns, whatever the fear is, it makes the atmosphere pliable to be able to peel our civil liberties away one by one without so much of a fight, because we're focused on the fear. So I just caution everyone to be very mindful of that. The Constitution is there for a reason, and it should be protected.
I agreed. Well said. And I want to just tap into that, because I think in terms of progressives coming to an agreement on gun ownership, I saw a good example of that in Oregon with the platform convention, because Charles Mon is the chair of the gun owners caucus in Oregon, and he's a progressive, right? And so they actually worked, if you talk about an example of changing gun laws to be more progressive, they actually worked to rewrite the legislative action items and platform in Oregon to really say we are going to ban not just assault weapons, but Charles worked with other gun owners to put the exact words they needed to be in there so Republicans couldn't defeat it or fire back at it. That to me would be an example of progressive gun reform, right? Making it more restrictive and agreeing that we need to have. Let me ask you this: do you believe that we should have licensing, registration, like we do for cars, for gun ownership?
I do. I actually believe that is very reasonable. If we have to go through a certain process to get a driver's license, even the most avid gun enthusiasts, I would imagine, because most gun owners are reasonable, responsible people, I would imagine that they would have no problem with that. The thing is this, and if I can just kind of segue into an aspect of this conversation.
Sure.
That, if we're talking about banning certain guns, I believe that we can't talk about gun reform if we don't address the situation of those in authority, militarized police, I'm speaking of, that they have them, because this is the concern of the people that I've heard anyway, that the people that I've spoken to, this is the concern. And especially amongst the African-American community, and this is not, let me just really be clear here. What I'm about to say does not belittle or negate whatsoever the atrocities that happen in mass school shootings, because that is an abhorrent scar on our country, and it should never be. Now, having said that, there has been, I believe, since 2013, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be off by a few, but roughly around 53 deaths in those types of shootings. Meanwhile, there is an average of 1,000 Black men and brown indigenous that get killed a year by militarized police. Now that's, and there's no busloads of people marching for that. That is an atrocity. That is unbelievable that this is still allowed to happen, and not one police officer has ever been on trial and convicted for wrongful death, for murder. In some of these cases, it is nothing other than that. So I have a very sensitive barometer in regard to justice. If it's not equal and something is unjust, it just turns in my stomach. So I think, and not to negate that, but I believe that we are negating that aspect out of the conversation. We need to add that into the conversation. So if we're going to ban anything, then police should not have those types of guns. So why do they need a gun that can kill massive amounts of people?
That's, well, You probably haven't heard me go off about it, but you basically say what I say about it, and you did a much nicer job than I do because I end up using a lot of cuss words.
Well, I'm being polite.
You don't have to. You can say whatever the hell you want on this show. We don't have FCC regulations. I absolutely agree with you 100%, and I think the solution is the same solution we have for society. Both our society needs to be educated, and our police need to be retrained. To me, our cops are the poorest trained cops in the world, and they're proud of it. And I think that's what bothers me the most. And I don't know if you've got anybody in Washington, but I haven't seen or heard of one cop nationally that has stood up against their brothers in arms to say, he's a racist, get him out of here. Or he shot that person and he shouldn't have done it, get him out of here. They don't do that. They defend themselves and serve themselves. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with you, John. And here's the thing. You talk about should gun owners go through a process likened unto a driver's license. Yes. And you know what else? Anyone that goes to get employment as a police, we used to call them peace officers. Remember back in that day, John?
Yes.
We're from the 70s. A peace officer,
to serve and protect.
That's what it should be. Someone that is trained in de-escalation. Someone that in order to be employed as a peace officer needs to go through the most stringent mental, psychological test to make sure that we're hiring someone that is in charge of keeping the peace, someone that has arms on them, that has the power to take a life. Those individuals need to have the most stringent test to make sure that they're right up here, and more importantly, that they're right within here.
Absolutely. And I don't think, we already know the FBI has done a study showing that the police are completely infiltrated with white supremacists, and they've done nothing about it. The police were like, because it runs all the way up to the top of the chain. We see other police departments, Marcus, German police go through extensive training, and they don't even carry guns. They don't carry guns. We've got cops that want to go all over Europe, and they've got a taser and a baton and a whistle and brains and good training. Where we end up with pistols, meathead pistols that shoot first. And I'm just going to say this from my view, just to make sure we're clear here, good cops stand up. I'm here for you. I want to talk to you. Where are you? Right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, I just wanted to throw it in there.
Though, John, in this day and age, right? Everything is just gone to hell to the point where you have to have courage and a strong constitution in regard to justice and what, I want to say what's right.
Yeah.
But that can be subjective sometimes. But depending upon someone's perspective. But in this day, because the masses are easily manipulated. And so, we have every news source, right? All of the news sources, the big mainstream media. I think we're down to, it was 6. Now we're down to, they're all owned by 4 companies.
Right.
And so, when the narrative is pushed out, right, and into the masses of the people, then the mass consciousness take in that narrative and make it the truth, right? And if individuals feel that it's not and know that it's not, it takes a lot of courage to be that one that stands up against that wave, because you will be persecuted, you will be maligned. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, it's all worth it, because it takes, even if it's just one standing up, speaking the truth in the face of Goliath. You've got to do it, because if we don't coalesce together, the individuals that have the courage to stand up against this mammoth wall of corruption, then we might as well all pack it up and go home. for our next generations, because if we don't give everything that we've got and everything that we are to turn this ship around, we've all lost.
You I thank you. That was well said again. You didn't. That was good. Are you going to climate? It's because you really say the ship is all lost. You're not talking about the Democratic Party. I talk about the ghost ship Democratic Party. For future generations, we're talking about climate change, really, right?
Well, the ship, I mean us.
Yes.
Humanity,
Yes, exactly. And we definitely, we're an angry, violent America right now. And if we work together, like you're saying, I kind of wanted to, I kind of want to shift to what you're talking about, which is climate. And
Sure.
Washington is in a unique place, like we all kind of are here in the Pacific Northwest, where you've got immense beauty, immense natural resources, and you have a fossil fuel industry that is working hard to embed itself with pipelines. Talk about that fight.
Yes. So right now, the fight is in Tacoma with Puget Sound Energy's LNG, liquid natural gas. So the big fight here, first of all, they've encroached upon treaty rights with the Puyallup tribe. They have so much disrespect for the indigenous peoples of this land. They didn't even have them come to the table in regard to this LNG project.
Right.
This, and it's a tank. It's a tank of liquid natural gas that holds 4 billion gallons. Now, in liquid form, it's 4 billion gallons. It will expand, apparently, to double that. And if it ever explodes, there are 42 daycares literally in the vicinity of that blast. 1,000 children spend their day in and around this area.
Wow.
Not to mention the 700 added tanker traffic that would go in and out of the Salish Sea. You might as well forget about the whales. The whales that are left, it'll kill them off. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a serious issue that needs more than attention.
And I bring that up only because your district is kind of strange in where it lies, and while it's not quite the port, right? It does encompass. Was it a military base that you had mentioned? I can't remember the name.
Yes, it does encompass JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord,
right.
and some of the tribe as well, some of the Puyallup tribe.
Right, which let's just back up, because if the United States had honored any of its treaties, that this wouldn't even be an issue. That land wouldn't belong to us, or
Exactly, it's stolen land.
Right. There would be no ports. There would be no. But it sounds I pulled up respecting indigenous lands because that's what we were talking about that with what they were going on there with Puyallup tribe. Denny Heck, the incumbent, the Republican in disguise, right? He has a whole bunch of ties with this industries. That's what keeps him there, right? He's sucking on cash from the defense industry, oil and gas, everything that's in there.
Yeah. Puget Sound Energy, if you pull up his campaign finance reports, you'll see PSE there as well as all the insurance companies. And by the way, he does not, and he will not sponsor HR 676.
Interesting.
And
that's your single payer, right? That's the.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the federal. That's HR 676 is Medicare for all.
Oh, the federal Medicare for all. Yeah, we're looking at Denny's money here. So he's got quite a bit right now. $1.1 million on hand, and securities and investment, a big chunk. Insurance, Boeing. Nice of Boeing. And Boeing doesn't just make planes, everybody. Boeing makes planes that kill people. We have credit union, National Association, painters and allied trade unions. And this is, a lot of the reason why we see a lot of our candidates not taking union money. Are you just taking small contributions, or do you have union back?
I haven't applied yet to any unions. It would depend on the union, I suppose. I have in my Senate campaign, the teachers union endorsed me and gave $1,000 to my campaign, which I was very
That's
very
nice.
appreciative of. So, there's certain unions that here's the thing, John, I have what I call the trifecta with me. It has to be my mind, my heart, and my gut. If all three of those things line up with whatever issue, then I'm a go.
All right. So
if one of the things bothers me, then I'm hesitant.
So with unions, and I've heard this from, I'm kind of whichever way to go. I mean, you check them out. What is their interest, right? Are they a decent union? Like for me, national nurses, my mom was a nurse. I got instant trust there. You know what I mean? So that totally makes sense. On the other hand, I don't have a lot of trust for securities investment industries and unions, lawyers, real estate, casinos, and gambling.
Yes.
I'm just going down the list here. He's got a lot of money.
And here's the thing. He's voted for perpetual war. He's voted to arm Syrian rebels. He's voted for the Authorization Act, which gives the president the power to go to war without Congress.
Right. Any Democrat that voted, I don't even understand how you call yourself a Democrat. You voted for that, right?
No, I mean, listen, the list goes on. If you were to get into his voting, and actually, John, I'll send it to you.
We have it.
He just recently voted against the Amash Amendment, which would have protected us, you and me, regular Americans who would be suspicionless, right, for warrantless surveillance. He voted against that within the bill.
Wow.
That was going to pass for foreign suspicion for tapping and all of that. That amendment could have protected our phone calls and our emails, but he voted against that. Which says a lot.
It does. It does. I mean, and I'm just going to ask you this. Truly, do you think that no matter what legislation they pass to supposedly protect our privacy, that our government is actually going to respect those laws?
Probably not.
All right. I have zero faith that the military-industrial complex and sitting administration would respect any law. They don't now, right? I mean, we see that.
True. Absolutely.
See, I mean, and the one I just going to bring this up that does everybody know the story came through that they Congress was caught spending all the money dealing with their sexual misconduct lawsuits.
How many million was that?
I don't even know. I don't know. It was
17
ridiculous.
million. It was quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's almost like anyway. So then they did a law or something to get rid of it, and then they snuck it back in. They put it back in. It's like that's the audacity of these people.
Yeah. Listen, and that reminds me. One of the bills I'd love to write would be, here's two of them just off the top of my head. One, that there has to be a criteria in regard to none of this bullshit, and I'm going to say it because we're not, you said go ahead and say it.
Oh, hell yeah. They said bullshit on CNN. You're all right there.
Listen, sometimes you just have to call bullshit.
Yeah.
Giving a 2,000-page omnibus bill,
right.
Say that 5 times fast, and a matter of hours for someone to read it, and then much less read it, but to absorb it, understand it, contemplate, the pros and cons, and then vote on it. It is bullshit that people don't have, I'd say, at least a month to read and have to contemplate something as so important as what would be stuffed in, multiple things stuffed in an omnibus bill.
Oh, yeah.
That should be illegal to have to pull those shenanigans of here's this 2,000-page thing that you're going to vote on in a few hours. That would be totally out if I had anything to do with it. And in regard to these types of omnibus bills, and they do it all the time, in legislation where the bill is called one thing and the bill, it's this Orwellian language where it's always the opposite. Whatever's the content is the opposite actually of what the name of it is. It's just ridiculous, right? So I would make a legislation that whatever is in the bill, there could be nothing added to it that is in nature the antithesis of what the bill that you're voting on.
Right.
Because that's chicanery. That's vote on this bill, but we're going to put something in it that is the complete opposite in principle. So you vote on this, but we get our dirty little things that we want to have passed. Yeah. All that dark crap needs to end.
It absolutely does. That is so frustrating. I'm with you right there. And like you said, we see that all the time. We're gonna throw this in here, the border wall, or no abortion, or whatever. It's like, yeah, stop it. Laura Livengood, we've been going off. We got like 13 minutes left. Do we have any other questions from the crowd?
There's just one. Redneck, I'm not quite sure where he's going with this. In what ways do you stay up to date on the issues and information regarding your constituency? How do you keep in touch with your peeps?
Well, in this day and age, the best way is social media, having your finger on the pulse in regard to what the issues are. In my district anyway, the main ones would be homelessness. Mm-hmm. And I am within the community of Olympia and Yelm, specifically in regard to homelessness there. We went into the jungle there and had a cleanup crew, and the subject is much more in depth than we have time for, but just being a part of the community and a part of different organizations who by nature have their finger on the pulse. And social media, my door is always open, and I get quite a few emails from people who have specific issues, like this one constituent. I'm saying constituent, they're not my constituents yet.
It's all right. Forward thinking.
Yeah, a guy named Darren has enlightened me that there is an issue with the LNI, the workers' comp issue. There's quite a few disgruntled citizens in regard to that. So then I took that issue. I was like, okay, well, let me learn about this, because I'm not a career politician. So there's many things that I still have yet to learn, but I'm definitely open and wanting to know what the issues are, and whatever I don't know, I make it a point to learn.
Well, and I'm going to expand on that, because what you are doing with all progressives is knocking on doors and going out and meeting people, and so yeah, I know you're active on social media, but where have you been going? How has it been on the road, and where are you going to be in the future?
Yeah, so one of the ways that we are cracking the net to balance out the fact that we don't have, millions of dollars, much less tens of thousands of dollars. And to be honest, we purposely haven't focused on the money, because kind of an experiment. Let's see just how far we can get by literally reaching as many people, person to person, as possible. So we're doing sign waving events, and the objective is to find every busy corner in every pocket of CD10 and literally be a force there, literally be a consistent presence there, and showing the message of what this campaign is about, with the intention of drawing to us people who also are fed up with the current system and the way things are. So between knocking on doors and scheduling town halls, if anyone is interested in having a town hall in your town, your city, your organization, please email us at vote@tamborine, TAMBORINE 2018.com. I don't care if it's 2 people or 2,000 people. I want to come and talk to you and see what the issue is in your group, in your organization, because that's truly the only way that we're going to do this, is doing it together. And I firmly believe we don't need that money. That's an illusion by the establishment to thwart out any progressives that want to stand up and do it. And because the illusion is, if you don't have $1 million, you might as well forget it. That makes people disheartened. There's no way I can get that kind of money unless I sell out. And you don't want to sell out, so then people never do it. So we're doing an experiment. Please be a part of the experiment. I think we can do it. I know we can if we all rally together. There's nothing we can't do.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you saying all that. And I was just saying, I'm looking in the comments in the audience, and they're saying, you're still authentic, just with the way you speak. And I think that's one of the things that makes going out and knocking on doors and doing what you're doing, talking to whoever you can, so powerful, is that people can tell the difference between somebody who's full of shit and somebody who's speaking from their heart, right?
No shit, right?
and I hate to say this to every, and the past is the past, but to everybody who's still with her, or everybody who voted for Hillary and didn't understand why those of us didn't, it's because I didn't see fucking anything in here that was genuine. It wasn't. To me, it didn't come across as genuine. That was what it did it for me. That made the difference. And I think right now, what you come across has Tamborine is passionate, genuine, authentic, and you're in there to want to solve problems and not and make a career out of being a politician. Right.
Thank you, John. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for running. Laura Livengood, I'm just going to give you one more chance. We had a lot of people in there. Any other questions? One more? No? Awesome. Phenomenal.
No, I think we're good. You're hitting it out of the park, girl.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. You want to take a moment to stump speech time, and then I've got a really cool version of Muse Uprising that we're going to play because
you do. That's so cool. That's my favorite song.
I love Muse. They're a fucking awesome band, and so we're definitely gonna. But I got to set that up. But just stump away. Tell everybody why they should vote for you and how they should help you, because you need help. You need people power and you need money, right? So go for it. Yeah,
listen, even though we're not focused on the money, we, of course, need at least some to do signs and lit and what have you. But here's the deal. We're living in such a pregnant time right now. I mean, it's literally pregnant with the possibility. There's a fork in the road, and we're right there. Either we do everything that we possibly can, and we all know that individually within our own hearts and our own minds, that we're either half-assing it or we're just giving it all we've got. Now, regardless of what's happening in the presidency, right? If we can replace these fork-tongued politicians who have sold each and every one of us out on any given day on Capitol Hill, if we are successful in replacing them one by one, then we're going to have something, because then we can start to change policy. So I beg you, I'm begging you, wherever you are, whatever state you're in right now, find someone that you feel good about, that rings in your mind and rings in your heart and rings, more importantly, in your gut, that you can just throw your whole mind, heart, and soul behind, your time, whatever money that you've got. I know all of us are short on that, but please make a commitment. Do whatever you can do, because we can turn this around for us, for the people. Because if we don't do it, I guarantee you, it's only going to get worse. So I thank you so much, John, for what you're doing here. And I appreciate the time to be able to speak to your listeners. And yeah, I'll come back anytime you ask me to.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being with us on We the People, Tamborine. And just to everybody in the Woburn Coalition and everybody else out there, I'd love to put together a town hall up there, or a round table with all your progressives. And, we can do that. We got time before the primaries. When is your primary?
Primary is August 7th.
August 7th. We got plenty of time. And am I wrong? Is it the top two? Is that what
it is?
Washington?
The top two, absolutely.
Okay. We didn't get it. We didn't look at the statistics, but everybody just understand that Tamborine is as good a chance as anybody else, because Denny isn't all that popular. He's not when you look at the numbers. So that's Thank you so much for being on Tamborine, Laura Livengood. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Everybody
You're
out
welcome, both of you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And to everybody out there in the audience, appreciate you being here. We're going out with Tamborine. You picked Uprising by Muse, right?
Indeed.
Your favorite songs. And we've already run that on the program before, and which it's no big deal. I mean, we're going to eventually cycle through songs. But when we do that, I like finding a different version. So I went and found this is a live version from that Muse put together with some director for the One campaign, and it's just what I love about this isn't necessarily the video stuff they got going on, but wherever they are in the crowd, there's 100,000 people. they sing the words.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it gives me chills, because just imagine this is us at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah. See, look, you got to envision it in order for it to happen, and let's do it.
That's exactly what it is. Thank you so much. Oh, before we start this, because we got Laura Live and Good, We the People, Wednesday. Who is going to be on?
Shahid Buttar, who's running for Congressional District 12, which is Nancy Pelosi's district in San Francisco. And we interviewed him last month when we went up to see Gail, and he's a very interesting guy, well-spoken. He's a DJ, and he's been very active for quite some time. So we're looking forward to meeting him.
That is freaking awesome, because that is another progressive running against Nancy, and that's just more left pressure. Very excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
This is us at the gates. Thank you for running, Tamborine. It's the hardest thing to do.
Thank you.